Hi and welcome to Certified Competitive Exam Ready Candidate. In the first part of the course, we actually understood about the introduction to this entire course. Of course, introduction to aptitude, and also we understood and learned about verbal ability by Jonathan Pereira. In the second part, we are going to understand a little more about two sections of aptitude, which is LR or logical reasoning and DI or data interpretation. Let's get started. Let's first understand how is the session plan going to be. We will start with a small introduction and icebreaker to logical reasoning. Then we will get into many topics of logical reasoning like series, blood relations, coding, decoding, direction sense, and many more. We will then get into data interpretation, tables, charts, and what are the kinds of questions you'll have in DI. Finally, we'll summarize the entire course or the second part of the course, and we will end the entire second part with queries and feedback. Let us begin with introduction and icebreaker. Now, please listen to the entire situation carefully. There are 4 prisoners who are all death sentenced, and they are very, very intelligent and logical prisoners. Okay. The jailer actually gives them a chance to go home free. Now, what is that chance the jailer is offering is, see, you are 4 people and I have 4 hats with me, very small hats. Okay. If you wear that, you cannot see your own hat. It's such small hats. Okay. Now the jailer tells them that I have 2 black hats and 2 white hats for 4 of you. I will make all the 4 of you stand in a place and I will tie you. Okay. The tying is both body and also your head is also fixed. You can't turn your head. Okay. But I'll not, blindfold. You can see everything. You can hear everything. I'll make you stand in one place. And after all 4 of you stand, I will drop 1 hat on each one of your heads. 4 people, 4 hats. Now the activity which she gives is very simple. Any one of you who can shout the color of your hat correctly and first will go home. No questions asked. But because I'm giving you such a big chance, there is also a kind of a rider with that. Now what is that condition? If you shout a wrong color, there are sharpshooters sitting on the top who will take a immediate headshot and you'll be killed. Now, if you are not sure of your color, you can stand quietly for the time of the activity and then go back to your jail. And whenever you are supposed to be hanged, you will be. Right. So this is the activity given. And do remember that all these 4 people are very logical and intelligent prisoners. Right. Okay. So now I will show you how these 4 people are standing. Now, if you see, there are 4 people, 1, 2, 3, and 4 prisoners. 1 and 2 are standing on a staircase. 3 and 4 are standing on the floor. And there is a very tall, opaque brick wall between 3 and 4. All right. And the direction shows that all 4 of them are looking in the same direction. They can't turn their heads. Okay. This is the situation. Now, 3, 2, 1, and there is a buzzer, and the hats fall like this. 1 has black, 2 has white, 3 has black, and 4 has white. Now the question is very simple, and this is a pure logical question. Out of the 4 people, who will go home and why? You can pause the video at this point, and if you want, you can go back a few minutes and listen to all the conditions carefully and then get to understand your answer. All right. Now, if you are still not getting the question for this, okay, now we can try to simplify the entire question. Okay. Now we are like in aptitude, you have 4 options and 1 right option. Here also there are 4 options, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and only 1 among them is correct. So that means you can use a technique called elimination of options. So let's start understanding or eliminating options now. See, the most common thing which comes to anyone's mind is maybe the first prisoner is going home because he is the only one who can see the maximum number of heads, right? He can see 2 people, 2 and 3. But if you think what is the chance of his survival, because he is seeing 1 white hat and 1 black hat, he can either have a white hat or a black hat. So the probability of survival is only 50% or 0.5, right? He will not shout because it's a big chance of getting killed also, 50% chance of getting killed also. So he will not shout. So the first option is eliminated. Let us go to the third option. If you go and check the third prisoner, he cannot see his own hat. He cannot see anyone else. He is actually facing a wall. So the chances of survival is not zero, again 50%, because there are only two colors. You can either shout black or white. So 50% chance of survival, 50% chance of getting killed. So if you actually keenly observe, both 1 and 3 have the same chance of survival. So even 3 will not shout. He will just simply stand. If you look at 4, 3 and 4 are actually in the same situation. 50% chance of survival, he will also not shout. So if you are sure of 3 options which are wrong, 2 should be the right answer. Okay, so you can blindly choose 2 if you are actually in a aptitude test. But here, because we are trying to understand the logic, let's also get to the logic. How can you tell for sure that he has a white hat? See, it's all about perspective, people. Okay, now whenever you have a problem, try to see the problem from different perspectives. If you don't do that, maybe you'll not get the answer. Right now, if you look at this problem from the perspective of 2, if you think you are the second prisoner, you can see only one head, which is black. Now you can either have a black or a white as per the conditions. Now that's your perspective. Let's say if you also have a black hat, you don't know, you're just thinking, if I also have a black hat, I cannot see the prisoner number 1, but he can see both of us, right? So if I also have a black hat, that is 2 also has a black hat, then 1 will definitely shout white and he would have gone home. But he's not saying anything, he's keeping quiet. That only shows that the 2 colors are different. Okay, so 2 and 3 are different. I can see 3, which is black, so I definitely must have a white hat on my head. So if you think number 2 is 100% sure of his color, because he can think from the other person's perspective as well. I hope you enjoyed this icebreaker activity. This was an introduction to logical reasoning. Logical reasoning is like this, guys. You will not have any calculations, but you need to understand the logic. You need to understand which is the right approach to get to the answer, and you can really quickly you will be able to give the answers. Let's begin with the first section, which is logical reasoning. The first topic under logical reasoning is series. Let's first of all understand the basics or the concepts of series. See, there are different types of series. If you think, the first type is called as a simple or straight series, and I have actually shown an example here: A1, A2, A3, A4, and so on. Okay, don't think of this as letters or numbers. I'm just representing a series in terms of A1, A2, right? That means, for instance, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a simple straight series which is increasing basically. So 9, 8, 7, 6 is also a simple straight series, but it is a reducing series. So this is one example or a basic type of series. Second type is mixed series. Now what can be done in a question is they will actually mix 2 series together. One example is shown here: A1, B1, A2, B2, A3, B3, and so on. That means the first, third, fifth, all these terms are in one series. Second, fourth, sixth, eighth, all these terms are in another series. So basically there are 2 which are intertwined together. Now mixed series can be of different types. Another example is A1, B1, C1, A2, B2, C2, so on. In this case, instead of 2, there are 3 series mixed together. All right. Another type is A1, A2, B1, A3, A4, B2. That means third, sixth, ninth are all in one series. All the other different terms are in the different series. There are only 2 series mixed here. Now we can understand series can be of, mixed series can be of different varieties also. Now, as I said in the beginning, the series can be either increasing. When you say the series is increasing, it can have 2 mathematical operators, which is plus and or multiplication. And it can also be reducing series, and there the mathematical operators can be either minus or subtraction and or division. Now why I'm saying and or is, you can have both operators working together as well. Okay, for example, if I just say 1, 2, 3, 4, it's simple plus which is working. Okay, because the increase is gradual. If there is a exponential increase in the series, then you can think that okay, there can be something to do with multiplication, sometimes multiplication and also addition. Okay, so that's how you have to be aware of. The first stage in solving any series problem is to understand whether the series is simple or mixed and number two, whether it is increasing or reducing. Okay, so once you are able to identify that, the moment you see the series, see, the questions can be like find the next term or find the odd man out in the series, things like that. Okay, so this is the first stage, and we'll understand how to do the second stage later. Moving ahead, now there are different types of series questions. The first one is number series, second one is letter series, and third one is picture series. Okay, now all these are different series questions uh, which can be asked in an aptitude paper. So let's take examples of each one of them to understand it better. Let's go with the number series example first. Okay, the question can be like 300, 296, 287, 271. There is a question mark, and then next term is also given. The moment you see this, you will be able to say that this is a reducing series. Okay, and it is not mixed. How can you say it is not mixed? Because the decrease is gradual and there is no decrease, increase, decrease, increase, something like that. Okay, so there is a gradual decrease in the numbers. So you can very clearly identify that it is a reducing or decreasing simple series. And number two, start finding the relationship between the first and the second term. See whether the same relationship can be fitted to the second and the third term. At least 2 to 3 you will have to check to be sure of the relationship, and then fit the same for the missing term as well. Okay. Now if you see the difference, 300 and 296, the difference is 4. 296 to 287, the difference is, quickly check the difference. What is the difference? 9. 287 to 271, the difference is 16. Now if you see, the differences 4, 9, 16 are all squares of numbers starting from 2. 2 square, 3 square, 4 square, and so on. Now you know the relationship. You can fit the same relationship for 271. So you have to reduce 2 square, 3 square, 4 square, 5 square from 271. So 271 minus 25 should be your answer. Okay. So the answer is 271 minus 25, 246. I hope you got the logic here. So how to fit the logic in number series? See, irrespective of what type of series is it, this is the way you have to approach the problem, guys. All right. Let's go to the next question now. See, if you see this series itself, you should be able to gauge that it is a mixed series. Why? So minus 1, 0, 1 is fine. Again, there is a 0. Increase, reduction. Okay. That should be something to do with the mixed series. One hint given in this question is there are 3 question marks. So probably there are 3 series mixed together. So these are all the things which you should be able to see in the problem. So now if you check minus 1, leave 2 items after that, 0 and 1. Minus 1, 0. If you leave it aside 2 and 4, after that it is 1. So minus 1, 0, 1, 2. Okay, that's one series. The second series is 0. If you leave 1 and 0 aside, next term is 2. So 0, 2, 6, 12. 0 to 2, 2 increase. 2 to 6, 4 increase. 6 to 12, 6 increase. So the next increase should be plus 8. That is, next term is 20. So 1, 4, 9, 16. The moment you see this, you should be able to gauge that it is all squares of numbers starting from 1. So 1 square, 2 square, 3 square, 4 square. So that next number should be 5 square. So basically the logic is there are 3 series mixed together. So the answer should be 3, 20 and 25. All right. So this is how you approach and solve number series problems. All right. So let's move ahead and take one more example of letter series. See, numbers are straight. You can see the numbers and gauge the relationship. For letter series, you should be knowing one thing for sure: the codes of all the letters from A to Z. The straight codes are 1, 2, 3, 4, so on up to 26, A to Z. Reverse codes can be Z is 1 and A is 26. So please make note of that somewhere so that it becomes easy for you to approach and solve these problems. All right. Let's take one example. Okay, now in this question, what is the logic here? So if you observe, you can convert all the letters into numbers, and you can see that again this is a mixed series. 2 series are mixed. So one is in straight order and one is in reverse order. So N, M, L, K question mark. Okay, so if you see it is in reverse order, O, P, Q, R is in straight order. Okay, so the answer here is J, S and I. Let's take one more example of letter series. See, these kind of questions, you need not convert them into numbers. So basically, if you see, the entire series is made out of only 3 letters A, B and C, and there are some blanks in between. That there is a small hint here, because there are only 3 letters. Maybe there is a pattern of 3 letters which are formed. So if you split the entire series into 3 3 3 3, C dash B, split it, B dash something, split it, C A B, split. So if you see, the pattern is C A B B A C, C A B B A C. Now if you assume and understand that pattern, start filling the blanks, and the answer you will get it as A C B C B, right? So that's one example for letter series. Let's move ahead and understand 1 or 2 examples in picture series as well. Okay, now this is one example. It's very, very simple. Now if you see on the top, there are 3 dots, 2 dots, 1 dot. There is a reducing trend. In the second, there is a 0 1 2 increasing trend. So again, there should be a reducing trend. Okay, so the last one is 1 dot on the top. So the next 2 behind it should be 3 and 2. Okay, there is only one option like that. So the first option is the right answer, right? Understanding or gauging the picture. One more example. Okay, there are 4 pictures given. You have to find out what is the what is the last picture or the 5th picture. Okay, 2 arrows in one direction, 1 up and 1 down. Again 2 arrows in one direction, 1 up and 1 down. So of course the next one should be, if you follow the same pattern, 2 arrows facing right. So option 2 is the right answer, which will complete the entire pattern. So this is how you approach series problem, guys. I hope you all are clear with approaching and solving series problems. See, I always say that blood relationship is very easy for us Indians as compared to foreigners. You know why? Because our Indian relationships are quite complicated. So for example, we have a different relationship with the father's brother as compared to mother's brother. But in English, everyone is an uncle, but we just call paternal or maternal uncle, right? So it's simple. The relationships are quite simple. Let me now tell you the concept or the basic crux of blood relationship. Irrespective of what is the question asked, if you can draw a family tree based on the question, you will be able to answer the questions really, really easily. Okay, so let's understand this concept of family tree first. Okay, now I have shown a family tree here with some letters. Now all the letters are some people. Maybe A stands for Arun, B stands for someone else, like that. Okay, and I have put some circles, some squares, and I've also put question mark next to I. Now every level is one generation. Okay, so in this there are 3 levels, so you can consider them as 3 different generations. A and B are the top generation or oldest, G, H and I are the youngest generation. Okay, now there are some nomenclatures I've given in the bottom. Circle stands for female, square stands for male, question mark means gender unknown, double arrow mark means couple, and single arrow mark is a direct relationship, non-couple. Okay, any direct relationship, and but it is not a couple. Now, so if you understand this entire blood relationship family tree, all the questions becomes very, very easy. Okay, so let's quickly understand. See, very simply, A and B are wife and husband, C and D are wife and husband, E and F are husband and wife. Okay, because there is a double arrow mark. G is the son of D, because single arrow mark, different generations. So he's a son because it is a square. Okay, so like this you need to understand. Why is I question mark? In the question it might be given that E is the father of I. Okay, but you don't know what is the gender of I, right? So I can be a boy or a girl. So in those cases where you are not sure from the question, you put a question mark. Now this is entirely how you have to draw the family tree. Some other relationships in this. So how is G related to B? So 3 generations up. So D is the father of G, and E is the brother of D, and B is the father of E. So again, B is the father of D as well. Okay. So finally, how is G related to B? G should be B's grandson. Okay. Always remember, blood relationships have direction. How G is related to B? Grandson. How B is related to G? Grandfather. What grandfather? Paternal grandfather. So that's how you need to understand. So how are B and G related? For this question, you can say grandfather and grandson. Now, how are C and F related? C and F are the wives of 2 brothers, right? So anything related or relation from the husband's or wife's side should have something by the name in-law. Okay, so both of them are female, so it should be sister-in-law. So brothers or sisters, daughters will be niece, brothers or sisters, sons will be nephews. Okay, so G is a nephew for E. E is the paternal uncle for G. All right. Similarly, H is the niece of D, and D is the paternal uncle of H, because H is a female now. Now, if a question is asked, how many male members are there in the family? You can quickly count all the squares, but there's one question mark also. So if there is an option saying cannot be determined, that should be your answer, because you don't know the gender of one person in the family. I hope you are very clear with drawing the family tree. Please remember, irrespective of what is the question in blood relationship, if you understand the question thoroughly and if you are able to draw this family tree, then the answering of the questions becomes very, very simple. Let's now move to the next topic, which is called direction sense. See, let's understand the basics first. So in directions, one thing you need to know is the compass. Okay, so what is north, south, east, west? Similarly, northwest, northeast, southwest, and southeast. If you know these 8 directions thoroughly, direction sense problems are going to be easy for you. Okay, but please remember, though we represent the directions using this compass, north is not this, right? North is somewhere around you, 360 degrees around you, somewhere there is one north direction. If you want to be very strong in direction sense, you need to tell the 7 directions if you know one. Okay, if I show you one direction and say this is east, so you should be able to give all the other 7 directions. That's the understanding you need to have. Plus, they all used Google Map, right? So when you are moving from south to north, left and right is very simple. But when you are moving from north to south, left and right are actually interchanged, right? So this is one understanding you need to have. Again, especially if you are not pressing on that start button on your Google Map, once you check the directions, then the map is not going to turn in your direction. So you need to be very clear about where you are moving, left, right. That's why I have shown you this map. So let's move ahead. Some more concepts of directions. Always remember, when you are facing north, right means you are actually looking at your clockwise direction, or right means your east. And when you are facing north, left means your west, and that direction is counterclockwise. Okay, in some questions they can say that, okay, a person is facing north and he moves 90 degree in counterclockwise direction. So you should be knowing clock and counterclockwise or anti-clockwise also. Don't hesitate to look at your watch to understand what is clock and counterclock. Okay, so this table is one thing again which is very important. So when you are facing south, right means west, left means east. Okay, now again, based on which direction you are facing, your right and left will change. When you are facing east, your left is your north, right is your south. The clock and counterclock remains the same. When you are facing west, right means your north and left means your south. So the north is clockwise, south is counterclockwise. Moving ahead. So there is one theorem which we studied in our high school, which is very important for direction sense problems. So that is Pythagoras theorem. Nowadays, if you see the ads of Byju's and the new startups which are giving classes for students, it will be very easy for you to understand. But anyways, so if you consider a right angled triangle, and if you say A, B and C are the 3 sides of the right angled triangle, the Pythagoras theorem says that the square on the hypotenuse is equal to sum of the squares on the other 2 sides. Okay, in simple terms, C square is equal to A square plus B square. So what does it actually mean is, if you draw a square using the side C, okay, and similarly if you using the sides A and B, the area of that square using the side C is equal to the sum of the areas of the other 2 squares. Okay, so that's what Pythagoras theorem is. And if you remember this very, very thoroughly, because in some of the movement problems in directions, this theorem is very useful. So they'll say that now a person moves from east to west, and then from that point he turns right. So there is a right angle triangle which is formed. Find the direction from the starting point to where he has reached. So you have to use Pythagoras theorem and find out the answer. I hope you are very clear with the concepts of direction sense. I'm sure when you solve problems, it will be much more easier for you. The next topic we are discussing is coding, decoding. Now, if you have watched this movie Razi, when Alia Bhatt goes to Pakistan and she is sending messages to our intelligence, she is actually using certain codes. She uses that to ensure that none of the others can understand what the message is, but the one who is having the code for that, right? So coding, decoding is something like this. So let's get into understanding the logic and concepts of this topic. So if you remember, I had told that you should be knowing the codes for all the letters from A to Z, straight and reverse, during letter series as well. Similarly, in coding, decoding also, it becomes very important. The straight codes are A is 1, B is 2, so on up to Z is 26. Reverse codes, Z is 1, Y is 2, X is 3, so on up to A is 26. Now, this is something you should be knowing. So, if you don't remember, write it down somewhere, or you can use tricks as if, you can only remember 1, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. So that plus and minus you'll be able to remember, right? So let's take a problem to understand it better. The question says, if emblem is coded as 216, crude is coded as 125, how will cricket be coded in the same code language? Now, first you have to decode how emblem and crude are coded as 125. Now, if you check emblem, the total number of letters in emblem, okay, you need not use the letter codes actually in this. The total letters is 6 and 6 cube is 216. If you see the question itself, 216 is also a cube of something, 125 is also a cube of something. That itself should give you that hint. Similarly, crude, there are 5 letters, 5 cube is 125. So cricket, there are totally 7 letters, so the answer should be 7 cube or 343. Now let's take one more example. So if I say, if I code cat, C-A-T as 6, how will you code dog in the same language? If you take the straight codes of all the letters in cat, C is 3, A is 1, and T is 20. Now 20 plus 1 plus 3 is 24, and I'm coding it as 6. That means I'm just adding the digits. 2 plus 4 is 6. So if you use the same logic to code dog also in the same language, the code will be 8. Now this is how the problems in coding and decoding will be. Now if you are able to get that logic correct, the number of letters or how the coding is done, so it will be very easy for you to solve the problem. Let's move ahead to the next topic of logical reasoning, which is arrangement. Now, as the name itself suggests, arrangement means you are arranging something in some fashion as given in the problem. So let's get into the details. In arrangement, there are different types of problems. The first one is called as data arrangement. Now in data arrangement, you can be arranging numbers, letters, brands, flats, anything. So they might give you that there are certain flats which are there in double row arrangement, okay? Flats facing each other, and they'll be giving certain conditions. You just have to arrange the given whatever it is, numbers, letters, or anything in the way the problem is mentioned, satisfying all the conditions, and then you'll have to answer the questions, okay? The second type of arrangement problems is seating arrangement. Now seating arrangement means what? There are a few people who are sitting in certain fashion. You will have to arrange them as per the conditions given in the problem and then answer the questions. My usual recommendation is never ever leave out the arrangement problems, because by arranging one set of whatever information in the as per the given conditions, you'll be able to answer at least 2 or 3 questions, okay? Sometimes even 4. So even if you take more than a minute to arrange, after that answering will be very, very easy, okay? So usually the questions are a little bigger in data and seating arrangement, but it is very interesting and it is logical. You need not do any calculations in that, okay? So when we come to seating arrangement, seating arrangements can be linear or in a single sequence. Linear arrangement can also be in one row or double row arrangement, okay? 2 sets of people facing each other. Seating arrangement can be circular or it can be square. So moving ahead, within seating arrangement, there are different types. So let's try and understand what are the concepts to be understood to solve the problems. See, this is an example of linear arrangement. A, B, C, D, E are sitting in a sequence or sitting in a single row, right? Now maybe conditions can be given that A and D are sitting in the corners, C is between B and D, things like this. There are some information in sitting arrangement problems, guys, which are direct information. Now if I say that A is sitting to the leftmost corner, it is a direct information. You can start arranging by that. but there are certain information which are indirect. Okay, for example, I say that B is not sitting between C and D. Okay, you still don't know where to put B. Okay, now these are all indirect information which has to be used after the direct information. All right. Now, when there is a linear arrangement, please remember, and when directions are not involved, left means your left, right means your right. In this case, if I ask you where is A sitting, A is sitting to the left of B, and C is sitting to the right of B. So your left and right is actually the left and right for the people also who are sitting, and the directions are not involved. Now, when we take double row seating arrangement, then there is a direction involved now. Now, if I say A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J are the 10 people sitting in 2 rows facing each other, then what happens is the people A, B, C, D are facing down, these people are facing up, or you can also say south and north, whatever you want. Okay. Now, in this case, so for A, B, C, D, E, right and left will be reverse. Okay, because the direction they are facing is important here. So for the people who are facing north, left and right is the same as your left and right. Okay, so this is one understanding you need to be very, very clear about. You already have studied direction sense. Now seating arrangement can also have directions within it, so you should be aware of it. Moving ahead, you can also have circular seating arrangement, as we have already discussed. So when it is circular, the complication can be a little higher. Okay, so what can be the complication? Let's understand. Let's say these are 4 people sitting on a circular table playing cards. That means all of them are facing the center of the circle. Okay. Now in this case, if you consider D, left of D is B, right of D is C. Okay. Or if you want to consider clockwise and counterclockwise, D's left is clockwise, D's right is counterclockwise. Okay. Now if you consider A, even A is facing the center, but because he is sitting on the other side of the circular arrangement, for him, left is C, right is B, and left is clockwise and right is counterclockwise. So this will change for each and every person. So this is again a understanding which you need to be clear about. Now what can also happen is, instead of people facing the center, people can be facing outside. Okay, so let me take one square arrangement and explain that. Now circular and square arrangement are almost the same, okay, in terms of complications. So that's why I'm taking square arrangement to explain this. So in this case, what has happened is there are 8 people sitting around a square table. People who are sitting in the corners are facing the center, and people who are sitting on the sides are facing outside. Okay, so that's the kind of condition given, and there are many different conditions like A is sitting opposite to A and so many things based on which you have arranged, let's say. Now once the arrangement is done, here again directions and left, right, counterclockwise, clockwise should be very clearly understood. Let me take E as an example. Now because E is facing outside and not towards the center, D is to the left of E and F is to the right of E. Okay. Now if you see clock, you can just see your analog watch and tell. So left for E is counterclockwise, right for E is clockwise direction. Now, if I take the example of B, now B is sitting somewhere on the northeast part of, if I have to tell the direction. Now for that guy who is facing the center, C is sitting to his left and A is sitting to his right. Left is clockwise, right is counterclockwise for him. Okay. Now again, if you understand, if you just see this slide right now, you will understand when it is circular and square, one complication is whether people are facing the center or facing outside. Second complication is when they give left and right, based on which direction they are facing, that will change. Sometimes they'll not give left and right, they might give clockwise and counterclockwise, which you have to be very, very clear about. Okay. I hope you are all very clear with the concepts of seating arrangement. The next topic in logical reasoning is syllogisms. Now, syllogisms is one topic which is kind of confusing. Okay. So when I was in my engineering, I used to never attempt syllogisms, thinking that it is very confusing, though it's a very simple one. I used to get confused and leave that. Okay. That I will attempt it in the end and never used to attend it. But if you think syllogisms is very, very interesting and simple. Again, logical topic. So let's understand the basics of it. In syllogisms, there are a set of statements given and also a set of conclusions. So let's take one example and understand it. The statements given here are some books are pens, no pencil is pen. Now, one very important thing for you to know is do not get confused between what is the actual truth and what is the statement given. Okay. In this question or in this topic, you just need to consider that whatever is given is true. Okay. Irrespective of whether it is actually true in the real world or not. That's one understanding. Based on that, first you need to identify how many entities are there as per the statements. Now in this statements, if you observe, there are only two statements, but there are three entities. Okay, one is books, second is pens, and third is pencil. So there are three entities. If you remember, in schools we used to have a topic called sets, subsets, Venn diagrams, right? So we used to draw Venn diagrams. That is how you need to approach to solve this particular topic. See, for every entity you need to draw one circle. As I said, some books are pens. So normally, if there is a statement which starts with all, that is the best entity to start drawing your picture with. But here nothing is there which says all. So I'll just write books. Some books are pens. So where should the pens wala circle come? Obviously, it should intersect the books wala circle, right? So books and pens, two entities we have drawn. Now, no pencil is a pen. Okay. Now, I have drawn a circle here and I have mentioned it as pencil 1. Now, why I have said this is, now this is the most correct representation of the two statements given. Okay. Some books are pens, no pencil is a pen. But now if you use a little bit of your logic, pencil can also come on the as an intersection to books, because even in that case, no pencil is a pen. Okay. But pencil 2 wala circle is partially correct. Now, if I have to say that pencil 1 is more correct than the pencil 2 wala circle. Why? Because there is nowhere which is explicitly mentioned that some books are also pencils, right? So that's why pencil 2 is not wrong, but it is partially correct. But pencil 1 is the right representation, and books, pens and pencil 1 is the correct picture which you can draw. Now, this is the understanding of how you will draw these pictures. Okay. Now, let's now get to the conclusions. So, any syllogism problems will have one set of statements and then some conclusions. So, let's check the conclusions. Conclusion 1 says some books are pencils. Conclusion 2 says no book is a pencil. Now, even before checking the conclusions, let's go to the options. Okay. Now, options will be kind of confusing. So, that's why let's check the options. The answer options are only 2 follows. That means only the second conclusion follows. Neither one conclusion follows nor the second conclusion follows. Both conclusions are correct, or either of them is correct, either this or that. So what will you choose here? Okay, let's check the conclusion. Some books are pencil. Now, if you see pencil 2 circle, some books are pencils, right? You feel that that is the correct conclusion. No book is a pencil. Now, if you see pencil 1 wala circle, you will feel that second statement is correct. Now, for this, you need to, probably what I usually do is I draw a table like this. The two conclusions, because there are two pencil wala circles. Okay, one is more correct circle, second one is partially correct circle, and then I'll check how the conclusions will behave. Conclusion 1 is false as per pencil 1 circle, but true as per pencil 2 circle. Conclusion true is true as per pencil 1 circle and false as per pencil 2 circle. Okay, so that's the reason you have to choose either 1 or 2. Okay, now obviously you cannot draw both the circles at the same time, right? The pencil 1 and 2, either this or that. Now, if you draw this, one conclusion will be right. If you draw that, another conclusion will be right. So that is why the answer for this question is either 1 or 2. The moment you read the statement, identify how many entities. So in this question, 3 entities. So one entity should have one circle. Think and draw all possible circles which you can do based on the statements. Then check the conclusions. I hope you are all very clear and you have understood the concept of syllogisms. Let's move on to the next topic, which is data sufficiency. Basically, how much data is enough? Let's take an example and understand this particular topic. All right. How many tiles of 2 feet by 2 feet will be required to do the flooring of a 20 feet long room? Now, how was this topic is, it will be covering a lot of different topics. For example, the question, if you see here, it is related to geometry, right? So you know the area, that is length and breadth of a tile, you know the entire length of the room, and the question asked is how many tiles of that particular area is required to cover that entire flooring. Now this is a geometry question, okay? Very clearly, you need to know the area of a rectangle and so many things. Now, like this, data sufficiency questions can come in many different topics. Okay, it can be even science. Okay, so you need to actually know a lot of concepts, but you need not actually find out the answer. Okay, so let me tell you why I am saying this. Now, the first statement says the height of the room is 12 feet, and the second statement says that the width of the room is 15 feet. Okay, there is a room, length is already given in the main statement. The first substatement talks about the height of the room, and the second substatement talks about the width or the breadth of the room. Okay. Now, more than finding out the answer, let's see how the options are in data sufficiency questions. So that's very important. The answer option says, if you can get the answer from statement 1 alone, but not statement 2 alone. That's the first option. Second option says you cannot get the answer by using both the statements and you need more data. Third option says if either statement 1 or 2 is sufficient to answer the question, either this or that, give me one additional information, I'll be able to find out the answer. Fourth option says, now if you can get the answer from statement 2 alone, but not statement 1 alone. Now, what you basically have to do is, you have to check the main statement and the substatements and decide which of these options is correct. Okay, so let's go back to the question now. Now, if you see here, in the main statement itself, you already are knowing the length of the room. In order to find out how many tiles of some particular dimension, you need the total area of the room. So for the total area of a rectangle, you need length and breadth. Okay, so in this case, the length and width of the room is sufficient. But if you see the first substatement, it says the height of the room, which is unnecessary. I don't even need the height of the room to calculate the answer for this question. But I would definitely need the width, right? If I don't know the width of the room, I will not be able to tell you how many tiles will be required. So in this case, second statement is definitely required. First statement is unnecessary. So once you decide that, okay, you need not actually calculate. Let me repeat this. Once you decide that based on your understanding of the concept, go and check the options now. Now, out of the 4 options, what is the right option here? So only the second statement along with the main statement is sufficient to find out the answer. So that's what you have to choose. I hope you are clear with data sufficiency. I repeat, do not try and find out the answer. Just, go back and get the concepts clarity. See what are the information you require to get to the answer and then choose the right option. Now let's move on to the next topic, which is analogy. Now this one image tells you everything about what is analogy. Okay, this image says if there is a picture of 2 socks and 2 footprints, there is a picture of 2 gloves and handprints, right? So if this is to this is to what? Okay, that is the kind of questions you will get. So let's understand it with some examples now. One example for analogy: if trial is to jury, then there are 4 options given now. Now we have to understand what is the relationship between trial and jury, and out of the 4 options given, find out that set which has the same relationship. Now what is trial and jury? In a court, if there is a trial going on, there is a jury which will give decision on whatever the trial is, right? Now let's check all the options. Let's check dispute and arbitrator. If there is a dispute, arbitrator is someone who will actually give a kind of a solution for the dispute, right? Looks like it is a right relationship, but let's not jump to conclusion. Let's check all the other options also. Poll and contestant. Poll is election, and contestant is one part of who is taking part in that particular poll or election. That's not the right relationship. Championship, spectator. some match is going on, let's say IPL match is going on, some championship, and you are a spectator there. You don't have anything to do in that, right? You are just watching it. Not the right relationship. Conference speaker. There is a conference and there is some speaker who is talking in that conference, but he's not giving any solutions there. He's just a speaker. So even that relationship doesn't fit in. So if trial is to jury, then dispute is to arbitrator exactly fits the same relationship. So this is how analogy problems are solved. Let's take another example. Now this is a numerical example. If 17 is to 19, 47 is to question mark. So especially in analogy, please go through the options because based on the options, your answers might be different. 53, 59, 41, 34. See, not only in analogy, even in series problems, you should always be aware of certain things like, squares and cubes of numbers, series of prime numbers from 1 to 100 and things like that. If you know the series of prime numbers, 17, 19, both are prime numbers and both are consecutive prime numbers. Okay. So what is the next prime number after 47? That is your answer. Okay. Now in the options given, 53, 59, both are prime numbers. 41, 34 you can eliminate because they are less than 47. But out of both, 53 is the next prime number after 47. So your answer should be T3. Now that we are done with one section of logical reasoning, let's move on to the next section, which is data interpretation. The brackets have mentioned table and charts. Now, data interpretation or DI as a section of aptitude paper is quite easy. Okay. Now, if you know the basic of number system, so how to get the sum of some numbers, how to take the average, how to read charts and tables, it will be very easy for you to answer. But data interpretation is a very, very important topic once you start working or once you get into your professional life. So let me give you certain examples for you to understand why data is so important. You might have seen the topics like data analytics, big data, and these things which are hot topics today, right? So what is it all about? If you have to take examples, see, we are all using smartphones, right? Even if you wish or not, Google and Facebook knows more about us than we know about ourselves. Now, why I say this is, see, one day when, okay, let me take my own example. One day I traveled around 150 kilometers within the city of Bangalore. Okay, so from morning till evening I was traveling, I was going and taking sessions in few colleges, I was meeting certain people, had lunch somewhere, had dinner somewhere else. So 150 kilometers of travel in that particular day. I was not using my Google Maps on my smartphone. Okay, I was just keeping it with me. So I came back, and you all can try this. You go to your Google Maps and in the options, go to your timeline. Okay, so I checked my timeline for that day, and I was just curious to know what is there in that particular option for that day. And on a big picture perspective, it will show wherever I have traveled, starting from my home to the entire distance of travel, it will show on the map. Okay, so that's one. It will show the entire distance. Not only that, if you start getting into details, it will even show that you started at exactly this time from your home. From your home to this point, you traveled on a two-wheeler. From this point to this point, you traveled in a car. Here to here, you traveled in metro. This is the hotel in which you stopped, and had your food. This is the college where you spent 30 minutes. Everything, every single information is there with Google. Okay, because we have, when we installed our Google Maps, we had actually given yes to sharing the data, right? So like that, it is one person's information. So if you now think how many smartphones are being used in the entire world, and so much of data is being stored in the servers of Google. Now that's why it is called as big data. Okay, huge amount of data, and to make sense of that, see, we can see that on our phone, that's one individual data, but for Google to make sense of so much of huge amount of data, it is gathering every single minute and hour from so many users across the globe. That's where data analytics comes into play. Okay, now this topic, data interpretation, is just kind of a introduction to what data and analytics is all about. Okay, so let's get into understanding it. First things first, so what is the basic form of representing data? Now if you think, you can represent data using columns and rows. Okay, that is the basic way of data representation. So if you are, say for example, 10 people in a class, serial number, the names of all the students, which is the branch, for example, or which are the different subject, what is the marks each one has obtained. Like this, you can represent data in a table, right? So even in data interpretation, you will get a table, you will have to read that table, understand it properly, and then answer certain questions. So I've taken an example here of a table. So the below table shows data of number of COVID tests per million population for the top 5 states till 22nd April to 2020. So I got it somewhere from the government source. Okay. Now there are basically 3 columns: serial number, state, number of tests, 5 top states which are mentioned. Name of the states is given, number of tests is given for each and every state. So now Delhi is, as per this data, Delhi conducted the maximum number of tests per million uh, till 22nd April 2020. Now, the moment you read and see this particular table, you should be able to very clearly understand what this data means. Okay, so you have to be in a position to make sense of this data. After that, the question can be asked like, what is the average test per million conducted in the top 5 states of the country? So you just have to add all the 5 information or data given in the third column and divide it by 5, because you know the formula of average now. Average is equal to sum of observations by number of observations. Like this, you have to use the basic understanding of your number system, average, ratios, and all these things, and you have to answer the questions. But more important than that is to make sense of the data given. Okay. Now this is the first type of question. Now what is a better way to represent data? So if, let's say, you are working in an organization and you are supposed to present some data of your department to the management, you show all the different tables and then talk about it? It looks very tedious, right? So people who are viewing your presentation will not be able to digest so much of data in the form of tables. So how can you represent it in a better way? Charts. Okay, so charts is the next very interesting way of representing data. So whenever we are talking about charts also, there are many different charts which you can use. Okay, bar charts, pie charts, line charts. There are such certain graphs called as scatter diagrams. So you can use many different charts. So let's take a few examples now. Let's take an example of bar chart. See, this chart, which is taken from Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, talks about road deaths by age group. Okay, so it's a bar chart and it is a horizontal bar chart. Okay, so less than 18 years set how many people died in 2016 in road accidents. Okay, or road deaths basically. 18 to 35 years, 35 to 45, and so on. Like this, there is a chart given and it is not a table of data. Now this looks more interesting if you are putting it in a presentation, right? See this graph, understand it, and maybe questions will be asked like, what is the percentage of road deaths of less than 18 years of age in comparison to the total deaths? Okay, you know what is that number, you know the total number, you have to take the percentage and tell. Or they might simply ask that which is the age group which has the second highest road deaths in the year 2016 as per the data. So of course you can, the moment you see it, you can say it is from 35 to 45 years. These are the kinds of questions you can get. Now, as a professional, you also need to understand when to use what type of chart. Okay, so that's very important. So that's why I have put one more slide here to just to explain what is the difference between bar chart and histogram. See, both actually look very similar. Both have different bars. So in terms of physical differences, see, histogram doesn't have any gaps between bars. Bar chart has gaps between each and every bar. Okay, so why is that? Why is that a difference basically? So many people are not able to give the differentiation here. So you should know, if you are representing any data in form of a chart, you should know what chart to use. Okay? See, histogram will normally have range on the x-axis and frequency on the y-axis. So if there is a continuous data, you can use histogram. Just to give you an example, so if you enter a big restaurant, okay, there are hundreds of people and you actually take the information from everyone about their age. So you get 100 different data points, right? So you, to represent that in a bar chart, you need to have 100 different bars. So instead of that, what you can do is you can just summarize that entire information in a table saying that 0 to 5 years, how many people were there, 5 to 15, 15 to 40, 40 and above. Only 4 categorization you have done. Now that is called as range. That comes in x-axis. And y-axis is frequency. 0 to 5 years, kids, maybe there were 25 out of 100. So like that, you can only represent it in 4 different bars and there will not be any gaps because it's a continuous data. Okay. When it comes to bar chart, so please don't get confused that bars are horizontal. The bar chart can both be horizontal or vertical. The earlier example was a horizontal bar chart. In this, it is a vertical bar chart. Okay. So on one axis, it will have categories and on the other axis, it will have numbers. Okay. So that is called as bar chart. I hope you are clear on that. So another chart which you can see is a pie chart. So when you have data which talks about part of a whole, you can use pie chart. Okay, let's take an example. See, this chart basically talks about the population of each and every state of our country as compared to the total population. So if you take one example of Uttar Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh has 16% of the entire country's population. Okay, so it is a part of a whole. Okay, so whenever you have this kind of data, you can represent it using a pie chart. Again, look at the chart, understand it thoroughly, and answer based on the questions. So let's say if the question says that if the total population of the country is 135 crores, what is the population of Maharashtra? So you just have to take 9% of the total population and then give your answer, right? So moving ahead, there is one more chart called as line chart. So this is very common in cricket matches. So if you are watching cricket match, the comparison between the two teams' scores will be showed in the line chart. So there are many places where it is used. Let's take one example. Now this graph shows Dhoni finding the boundary rope and balls taken for Dhoni to hit a 6 or a 4. Okay, now the red line represents sixes and the blue line represent boundaries. Okay, now in different seasons, so x-axis is representing different seasons, 2008, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, different years, and the y-axis represents how many balls on an average did it take to find a 6 or a 4. Okay, the moment you see this again, try to understand and grasp this entire information. The question can be asked like, in which year did Dhoni take the least number of balls to hit a 6? Okay, now you know that 6 is represented by the red line and you are looking at least number of balls. So the year is 2018. So like this, you will have either table of data or charts, which is again the best way of representing a data. You have to understand about that particular information, then answer the questions in data interpretation. Let us now quickly summarize what we learned in this second part of Certified Competitive Exam Ready Candidate. We started with introduction and icebreaker, in which we solved a puzzle or a riddle to understand what is logical reasoning. Then we got into many logical reasoning topics, around 8 to 9 topics we have learned and understood in this session. And then we got into data interpretation. How is data represented in tables, charts, and what are the kind of questions asked? Now with that, we come to the end of part 2. One thing I want to clarify here is, in these sessions, we are actually trying to understand the concepts very, very clearly. We are not taking too many problems if you think. We will have mock tests and also practice tests for every different topics we are discussing in these sessions. Please do look at the description of the video in YouTube to find the link for the quiz. Only and only if you practice solving these questions will you completely understand it. Otherwise, you will have fun in learning these topics, but you will not be able to answer questions later. Okay. If you have any questions or queries or feedback regarding this course, please write to us at arunsacademy4success@gmail.com. Let's end this course with a quote which says, "Logic is invincible," because in order to combat logic, it is necessary to use logic again. Okay. With that, we come to the end of part 2 of Certified Competitive Exam Ready Candidate. We hope that you had fun learning the logical reasoning topics and DI. Wish you all the very best. Keep learning and keep growing.